Have you ever looked in the mirror at a life that seems perfectly fine on the outside and asked yourself, why do I feel so empty? Have you ever felt a strange disconnection, a quiet hollowness, even when everything is supposed to be okay? I have. For years, I walked through life like a stranger in my own story, ticking all the right boxes, but feeling none of the joy. That feeling of being lost sent me on a journey not to change the world outside, but to understand the universe within. It was a journey to understand my emotions, and it became my path to healing. I used to believe my emotions were enemies, unpredictable storms that needed to be tamed or ignored. But I learned they are not adversaries. They're maps of the soul, intricate guides pointing toward our deepest truths. Each emotion, I discovered, has 3 distinct layers. It begins with a physiological response, the tightening in your chest, the heat rising to your cheeks. Then comes the cognitive layer, the story your mind tells you about that feeling. Finally, there's the behavioral layer, the action you take or the reaction you have as a result. When we are ignorant of these 3 layers, we don't choose our responses. We're simply puppets pulled by invisible strings, reacting blindly to whatever arises. We try to suppress, to fight, to destroy the feelings we don't like, but we miss the point entirely. Each emotion is a signal, a messenger from our inner world that needs to be listened to, not silenced. Let me ask you a question. Which do you think is more dangerous? A sudden, fiery outburst of emotion, or a lifetime of quiet, simmering suppression? The outburst might cause immediate damage, a wildfire that burns bright and fast. Suppression is like a slow poison seeping into the foundations of your being, eroding your connection to yourself and the world until one day the entire structure collapses. Many of us spend our lives holding back the floodgates, terrified of what might happen if we let our true feelings show. We learn to fear the very parts of us that are trying to speak. Let's start with 3 powerful emotions that we often label as negative: anger, jealousy, and envy. We see them as character flaws, as signs of weakness. But what if they are simply misunderstood messengers? Anger, I've learned, almost always comes from a damaged expectation. You expected respect, and you received dismissal. You expected fairness, and you witnessed injustice. The fire of anger rises to protect a boundary that has been crossed. Instead of letting it consume you or bottling it up until it sours, we can transform it. We can use its energy to look back at the original belief, the unmet expectation that was hurt. In that space, we find not just rage, but a deep-seated value that needs to be honored. Then there is jealousy, that green-eyed monster that whispers, "I am not good enough." It's a painful, gut-wrenching feeling that arises when we compare ourselves to others and feel we come up short. It points directly to our insecurities, our deepest fears of inadequacy. But if we can catch it, if we can recognize it for what it is, not a reflection of our true worth, but a spotlight on our perceived lack, it can become a powerful driving force. It can show us what we truly desire, what we value, and motivate us to cultivate those qualities within ourselves, not to beat someone else, but to become a better version of who we were yesterday. Envy, jealousy's close cousin, often appears in our most intimate relationships when our fundamental need for safety and connection feels threatened. We see our partner's attention drift, and we feel a primal fear of abandonment. The instinct is to control, to demand, to cling tighter, believing that if we can manage the other person, we can manage our fear. But this is a losing battle. The key to healing envy is not to control others, but to turn inward. It's about returning to the wounded part of ourselves that feels unsafe and unloved, and giving it the reassurance it craves. It's about building a sense of security within, a foundation so strong that it cannot be shaken by the actions of others. Beyond these fiery emotions are 3 forgotten friends that we spend our lives running from: shame, grief, and fear. Shame is perhaps the most isolating of all emotions. It makes us want to withdraw, to become small, to disappear. It tells us not just that we did something bad, but that we are bad. Yet, shame is also a natural emotion of morality. It's a sign that we have a conscience, that we understand right from wrong. The poison of shame thrives in darkness and secrecy. The only way to heal it is to do the one thing it tells us not to do: speak it. By bringing our shame into the light, by sharing it with someone we trust, we rob it of its power. We realize we are not alone, and in that connection, we find forgiveness and acceptance. Grief is the price of love. It is the natural, necessary process we must move through when we experience loss. It could be the loss of a person, a dream, a job, or even a past version of ourselves. Our society is uncomfortable with grief. We're told to move on, to be strong, to get over it. But grief does not ask to be fixed. It asks only to be felt. It is a sacred space of remembrance and release, a slow and winding river that must be allowed to follow its course. By allowing ourselves to fully experience our sorrow, we honor what we lost, and in time, we create space for new life to grow. And what about fear, that cold, trembling feeling that holds us back from our dreams? We believe that courage is the absence of fear, but that is a myth. Courage is not about being fearless. It's about being terrified and taking the next step anyway. Fear only disappears when we face it. We have to name it, to look it in the eye, and continue moving forward even while our knees are knocking. Each step we take in the presence of fear diminishes its power and expands our world. True bravery is found in the trembling, in the choice to act despite the voice that screams for us to retreat. This journey through the landscape of my emotions led me to a fundamental question: what is true happiness? For so long, I thought it was a destination, a perfect sunlit peak I would reach after overcoming all my problems. I was wrong. Happiness is not a place you arrive at. It is a way of seeing, a way of feeling, a way of living each day. I discovered there are at least 4 forms of happiness. There is the bubbling excitement of a new adventure. There is the quiet depth of meaningful work. There is the warm glow of connection with those we love. And there is the profound peace of awareness, of simply being present with what is, without judgment. I realized that genuine happiness doesn't come from achieving perfection. It comes from knowing enough, from finding contentment in the present moment. It comes from living truly, from aligning our actions with our deepest values, even when it's hard. It's about letting go of the fantasy of a flawless life and embracing the beautiful, messy reality of our own. This led me to the most profound realization of all: the importance of accepting myself as imperfect. For most of my life, I saw my imperfections as failures, as evidence that I wasn't good enough. But imperfection is not a failure. It is a fundamental part of existence. It is what makes us human, what makes us unique, what makes us real. A tree with a crooked branch is no less a tree. Sky filled with clouds is no less the sky. Emotional maturity, I finally understood, is not about controlling or eliminating our emotions. It lies in accompanying them, and learning to walk alongside them as trusted companions, rather than fighting them as enemies. It's about holding space for our anger, our sadness, our fear, and our joy, all at the same time. The core of inner freedom is found in this gentle surrender. It's about letting go of the rigid expectations we place on ourselves and others. It's about daring to see yourself honestly, with all your flaws, your scars, and your vulnerabilities, and choosing to love what you see. Accepting yourself as imperfect is not a sign of giving up. It is the courageous starting point of a life filled with peace, meaning, and authentic connection. It is the journey home to the one person who has been waiting for you all along: yourself.